Today the lesson is on straight line equations. Before we start, we should have some prior knowledge for this topic. Let me have the y-axis and the x-axis here. You can see a straight line, and we know the form is y equals mx plus c, which is going to be used. And you should be familiar with what m and c stands for. M is the gradient, or you can see the slope of the line, while c stands for the y-intercept. Now from the graph, this is the y-intercept. Please don't confuse with this. This is the x-intercept. For the form y equals mx plus c, the straight line equation, we use the coordinate, the y coordinate from here, which is c. Now the gradient, denoted by the letter m, is given by the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So when you have a line, you can take any 2 points lying on the line. So let me mark this point as A and B. The coordinate of A will be x1, y1. The coordinate of B will be x2, y2. You just have to apply the formula to find the gradient, and as we solve the questions, we will be applying it, and I'll be showing you how to work on it. Now, if you ask me, some of the common errors found while finding the gradient is that you tend to write m is equal to x1 minus y1 over x2 minus y2. You just take the difference of these terms, which is a big no. So these kind of errors should be avoided. It is the change in y. So you can see here, it is a change in y divided by the change in x. Moving on to the next topic, let us consider two parallel lines. I will label them as L1 and L2. You can see they have the same gradient or the same slope. So in these conditions, you can say if M1 is the gradient of line L1 and M2 is the gradient of line L2, so the condition is M1 equal to M2. They have the same slope or the same gradient. We will be using this while solving the questions. Let's talk about perpendicular lines. Again, let me label it as L1 and L2. So this is the point of intersection for both these lines, and you can see they are making a 90 degree. That means the lines are perpendicular to each other. If M1 is the gradient of line L1 and M2 is the gradient of line L2, then the condition is that M1 multiplied by M2 should give you a -1. Now let me use some numbers. For example, if M1 is taking a value equal to 3, then M2 takes a value of 1 by 3 with a negative sign. So it's going to be -1 by 3. Now let's just do the checking. You can see 3 times -1 over 3 giving you a -1. Now the skill that you need here is, for example, if you have 1 by 2 as the gradient for M1, you take the gradient of M2 as, you flip this fraction as 2 by 1. If this is positive, this is going to be negative. Another example, if you have 4, so the gradient of M1 is 4, then the gradient of M2 is going to be 1 by 4. Here it's positive, so this is going to be negative. And similarly, if these values are negative, again you have to just flip the fraction and then you change the sign. Then you have the midpoint formula. Now if you want to find the midpoint or the coordinates of the midpoint C, which lies exactly at equal distance from A and B, so let this coordinate be x comma y. So to find x, you add the x coordinates of A and B and divide it by 2. To get the y coordinate of the midpoint, you add y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So this is the midpoint formula. And then you have the distance formula. Again, you have A at x1 comma y1 and B coordinate is x2 comma y2. So the distance formula, the length of the line segment AB, can be given by square root of x2 minus x1 the whole square plus y2 minus y1 the whole square. Now there is no harm in taking x1 minus x2 the whole square or y1 minus y2 the whole square, because the difference is getting squared, so there wouldn't be an issue with the signs. Okay, now we're going to apply all this knowledge into the questions given to find the solution. Let's move on. Question 1. The diagram shows the straight lines L1 and L2. The equation of line L2 is y equal to x. Question 1 is to find the gradient of L1 and the equation of the line L1. Now you can see you have the line L1 here, so make sure you are looking at the right line, not at L2, and this is L1. Okay. Now to find the gradient, starting with the formula, we know the gradient m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. As a step to find this, looking for two coordinates from the line L1, I would prefer to take these points because it makes the calculation easier and it is quick to identify a point on the y-axis. So your x coordinate is going to be 0 and my y here is 2. From this side, here a point on the x-axis, we know the value for x is 6 and the y coordinate will be 0. So you have the 2 points identified, marking them as x1, y1. This is going to be x2, y2. Substituting into this equation or the formula for the gradient, my y2 is 0, 0 minus 2, my y1 is 2 here, over x2 is 6 minus x1 is 0, giving me a negative 2 over 6. So my gradient simplified gives me negative 1 over 3. Moving on to the next part, the equation of the line. Now to write the equation of the line, we need to find two components to complete this equation, which is m and c. Now since we are talking about the same line L1, we have already found m, which is negative 1 over 3. The next part c is where the line L1 meets the y-axis. So you have the c here, this is the y-intercept. So c is equal to 2. So you can write y equals negative 1 over 3x plus 2. Moving on to the next question. Question 2. The equation of the straight line is 2y equals 4x plus 6. What is the gradient? So the question is to find m. Now we can see that the equation given is not in the form y equals mx plus c, because along with y you have a 2 here. You will have a tendency to quickly write the answer for m as 4, the value that comes with x, which is wrong. Because here the equation is not in the form y equals mx plus c, it is 2y. So how can I change this equation to y equals to mx plus c? I will be dividing this equation by 2 on both the sides. So my answer, my equation will look like y equals, the 2 and 2 cancels. Here I'll have a 2 because 4 divided by 2 is 2. Here 6 divided by 2 will give me 3. Now my equation is going to be 2x plus 3. Now I can compare it with the y equals mx plus c form, and I can see y equals 2x plus c, which is telling me my gradient is equal to 2. Moving on to the next question. Question 3. You have no figure given here in this question, so you have to read the question very carefully. The straight line L passes through the points A and B. If you don't have a figure, you can always make it a point to draw one, just a rough figure, so that you can just mark 5, 8 as your B, and A is going to be negative 1 4. First question, the gradient of L, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is your x1 and y1, this is your x2 and y2. So it's a direct substitution into this value for a y2, y1, x2 and x1. So 4 minus 8 over, see, x2 is negative 1, so negative 1 minus x1 is 5, which is equal to minus 4 over minus 6, which gives me 2 over 3 when simplified. Now it is a common doubt that students ask, what happens if I label them the reverse? For example, what if I label this as y1 and x1 and the coordinate b as x2 and y2? Let me tell you, it will not make any difference. I'll just show it here. See, y2 minus y1 is 8 minus 4 over your x2 is 5 minus, you have a negative 1, so minus 1. Please make sure you have a bracket and you realize it's going to be 4 over 6. Again, the answer remains 2 over 3. So there is no problem in taking the first coordinate or the second coordinate as x1, y1. It's up to you. Next question is to find the equation of the line L. Now again, equation means y equals mx plus c. You already have found the value for m, which is 2 over 3. Now the challenge is to find c. Now let me give you the key steps to find c. Use m and one of the coordinates given. Substitute it into y equals mx plus c. Okay, I will take one of the coordinates here. I'm going to take b. Okay, you can take a or b, it's up to you. I prefer to take b. So my y there is 8 equals, my m is 2 over 3. The x coordinate, this is my y, my x coordinate is 5 and plus c. So from this equation, I'm going to find what is the value of c. So I have 8 is equal to 10 over 3 plus c, from which I get the answer for c as, rearranging, it's going to be 8 minus 10 over 3 equal to c. So my c is going to be, making the common denominator, I'm trying to find my answer as a fraction. So 3 times 8 is 24 minus 10 over 3, giving me a 14 over 3. So I have the value for my c now. I have the value for m. So just combine them, put it together, you get the answer for the equation of the line L. So y equals 2 over 3x plus 14 over 3. This is your answer. Moving to the last part of the question. The line L also passes through the point P8, y. Find the value of y. Now we have found the equation for the line L, which is y equals 2 by 3x plus 14 over 3. And they have given the condition that the line passes through the point P8, y. That means this equation should satisfy this condition when the value for x is 8 and y is what you're going to have to find. So I will substitute the value for x here to find y. So 2 by 3 times 8 plus 14 over 3, giving me an answer 16 over 3 plus 14 over 3, which is a 30 over 3. So you have the answer for y as 30 divided by 3, giving me a 10. This is your answer. Question 4. Find the coordinates of the midpoint of the line joining the points a 2, -5 and b 6, 9. This is pretty easy question. You just have to label them first, x1, y1 and x2, y2, and we just apply the formula. See, they are asking you for the coordinates. You have to write the x coordinate and the y coordinate into the space. So your x coordinate is going to be x1 plus x2 over 2, which is 2 plus 6 over 2, which is giving you an answer 4. And the y coordinate here is going to be -5 plus 9 over 2, which is 4 over 2, again giving me a 2. So the midpoint, the coordinates of the midpoint is going to be 4, 2. Moving on to the next question. Question 5. The straight line L1 has the equation y equals -1 over 2x minus 2. Write down the y-intercept of L1. That's a direct question, as we know y equals mx plus c. Whatever comes along with x, which means the coefficient of x is the gradient, and this part, the constant, is going to be the intercept. So from here, we can clearly see that -2 is the answer. And write down the gradient. The gradient is -1 over 2, or you can just write -0.5. The line L2 is perpendicular to L1. So we have the gradient and intercept for the line L1 here. Write out the gradient of line L2. So they have given the condition that they are perpendicular. So if this is L1, this is going to be L2. Write down the gradient of L2. So we have already found the gradient of L1 as -1 over 2. So for the gradient of L2, it's going to be 2 over 1 with the opposite sign. So the answer here is a +2, or you can just write 2. Find the equation of L2, give your answer in the form ax plus by plus d equals 0. Now to find the equation of L2, you have the gradient. The gradient is found. And now what you have to find is the y-intercept. Following the previous steps, So y equals mx plus c. The line L2 is perpendicular to L1 and it passes through a point. So 3, 7 is a point on the line L2. So I can directly use 7 is equal to my m is 2 times x is 3 plus c. So I have 7 is equal to 6 plus c, giving me my c to be equal to 1. So I have the two parts. I have the gradient of L2. I have the y-intercept. So let me just put them together. So y equals 2x plus 1. So this is going to be the straight line equation, but they want it in the form ax plus by plus c equal to 0. So I'll be moving all these terms to one side of the equation. So I have negative 2x plus y minus 1 equals 0. So this is of the form that they have asked for. You have ax by plus c form, or you could also have it in, like, this is also a right form, or if you, when you rearrange, you can also have it as 2x minus y plus 1 equal to 0. So both these answers will be considered right. Last question for the day. Now the distance between 2 points, we know we are going to use the distance formula, which is square root of x2 minus x1 the whole square plus y2 minus y1 the whole square. Marking the coordinates as x1 y1, x2 y2. So you have the square root and my x2 is 2. So 2 minus, now my x1 is minus 1. I open a bracket. So this is x2 minus x1 the whole square plus my y2 here is 3 minus y1 is 2. So 3 minus 2 the whole square, which is going to be the square root of, I have two negatives, it's turning to be 2 plus 1, 3 square plus 3 minus 2 is 1, 1 square is again 1. I can write this as equal to 9 plus 1, giving me a square root of 10. Giving your answer to 3SF, it's going to be 3.16 units.